Far away in a quiet house in the woods, Jo is decorating for her own baby shower. Her husband, Spencer, walks down the stairs and teases her for throwing a party for herself. They laugh together, and Spencer playfully picks her up and places her on the kitchen table. The next morning, Jo's helper, Caroline, comes over to prepare for the event. Soon, friends and coworkers arrive, and the party begins. Caroline praises Jo for being a strong and successful woman who has helped their company a lot and wishes her the best for the baby. People get emotional, a few tears are shed, and then everyone leaves. That evening, Jo cleans up and writes a blog post about her special day. Her blog is popular, so many people comment, and she happily replies. Later, she picks a tiny baby shirt. Spencer jokes that it wouldn't fit him, knowing it's for the baby. But when Jo turns around, she's surprised to see a cheerful woman named Shelley instead of Spencer. Shelley asks how she feels about the pregnancy and is pushing a stroller. When Jo tries to peek inside, Shelley pulls it back, saying not to wake the baby. That night, Jo tells Spencer about meeting Shelley. Before they can talk much, the doorbell rings. It's Spencer's mother, Doris, who often gets too involved in their lives. She brings Jo a snack, saying it might help her go into labor. Not long after, Jo feels sick while updating her blog. Spencer quickly drives her to the hospital. Labor starts, and in the chaos, Jo shouts at the doctors. She passes out and later wakes alone in a dark hospital room. A nurse tells her she needs to go to the bathroom before leaving. Jo reluctantly does it, feeling gross. Before they leave, the nurse hands her the placenta, saying it's healthy to eat. Jo is shocked, but takes it anyway. Once baby Ruby is strapped into the car seat, Spencer drives carefully. Jo teases him, saying he shouldn't drive like an old man. She looks out the window and sees another woman with a stroller, but the woman suddenly disappears. The next thing she knows, Spencer is telling her to get out because they're already home. She can't remember the ride. The rest of the day is filled with Ruby's crying. Jo finally gets her to sleep, but the doorbell wakes her. Angry, Jo rushes to the door, but finds it's morning. Outside, Caroline and roof workers greet her. Later, Jo naps on the couch next to Spencer. When she wakes, Ruby is gone, and their dog is chewing a big bone. Horrified, she screams, thinking the worst, but Spencer explains the bone is from his butcher's shop. The next day, they tell the doctor about what happened. Jo also asks if Ruby's crying is normal. The doctor says it is. Back home, Doris tries to comfort Jo, saying Spencer cried a lot as a baby too. This leads to an argument between Doris and Spencer. Weeks pass, and Ruby's crying wears Jo down. She holds her almost all day just to keep her quiet. One day, while walking with the stroller, a speeding car makes Jo stumble to protect it. Shelley appears again to help her, and this time introduces her to some other moms with babies. They chat, and Jo jokes about her famous recipe that made her well-known locally. She asks how they calm their babies, but they only say to trust her instincts. Jo feels frustrated, like she's doing something wrong. Later, Spencer suggests leaving Ruby with his mother so they can have a date night. Jo isn't happy, but he convinces her. Before leaving, she pumps milk in the bathroom and notices her reflection staring back strangely. She feels uneasy, but Spencer insists they go. At the restaurant, Jo says she feels like she's disappearing. Spencer says this is normal for new moms and that she'll feel better once she's back at work. When he goes to the bathroom, Jo checks the baby monitor app, but the video feed from Ruby's room suddenly cuts out. Jo calls Doris, but no one answers. She starts to panic. When Spencer comes back, Jo insists they go home right away, even though he tells her to calm down. Once they arrive, Spencer explains that Doris probably just bumped the webcam while putting Ruby to bed. That night, Jo tries to feed Ruby, but the baby bites her so hard that she starts bleeding. The next day, Jo meets with a worker to talk about making the house safe from the baby. The man laughs and asks if she means safe for the baby, and Jo quickly agrees. But suddenly, scary pictures flash in her mind. Images of her getting hurt while protecting Ruby. Later, Jo goes running with Shelley. She quietly asks if Shelley ever feels like her baby is angry at her. Shelley laughs it off and says Jo just needs to get out and have fun. Ruby's sudden crying makes Joe cut the outing short. Back home, Joe is busy doing chores until Caroline comes in and says Ruby is crying again. Tired and annoyed, Joe storms into Ruby's room and tells her she won't let her win and orders her to be quiet. When Spencer comes home, the crying starts again. Joe goes to check, but Spencer offers to help. She says there's nothing he can do, yet the moment he picks Ruby up, she stops crying. That night, Joe dresses up and leaves without telling Spencer where she's going. Outside a pub, she lights a cigarette and is shocked when her shadow smokes too, then walks away on its own. Inside, the moms are drinking, laughing, and talking about motherhood. Joe dances closely with Shelley, and things get more intimate. They sneak away to a car and start making out. The next morning, Joe wakes up behind the wheel of a car parked in the middle of the road. She listens to a voicemail from Shelley, who asks why Joe never came out with him last night. Confused, Joe goes home and tells Spencer she must have fallen asleep in the car for being tired. Spencer is annoyed that she stayed out all night, and they argue. He says at least one of them has to work. Joe gets upset, and they fight until he accuses her of not being happy about having Ruby. Ruby's crying interrupts them. Joe goes to soothe her, but Ruby suddenly yanks Joe's earring, tearing her ear. At the hospital, the doctor says babies grab things all the time. Joe blurts out that she thinks Ruby is angry and disappointed in her. The doctor looks confused and whispers to a nurse that Joe might be having mental problems. While waiting, Joe reads a book about babies and learns that their strange behavior can sometimes be a way of warning about danger. She suddenly realizes Ruby isn't mad. She's been trying to warn her about something. Joe grabs Ruby and runs out of the hospital, ignoring the doctor. She goes to Spencer's work and says their daughter is trying to tell them something bad is coming. Spencer calms her down and drives her home before going back to work. He asks Doris to stay with Joe. While taking care of her, Doris talks about how she struggled after Spencer was born. She says that even though people called motherhood beautiful, she couldn't stop him from crying, and it began to break her. She admits that one time, she almost hurt him with a knife before stopping herself. Joe tries to stop the conversation, but Doris says these feelings should be talked about. That night, Joe wakes up and looks in Ruby's room and sees Doris breastfeeding the baby. Joe collapses in shock. The next morning, Joe asks Doris about what she saw, then tells her not to touch Ruby while she goes outside to talk to the workers. As she steps out, a worker accidentally drops a hammer, almost hitting her. Scared, Joe rushes inside, grabs Ruby, and runs to Shelley's house. Shelley thinks Joe told Spencer about their kiss, but Joe says she thought that night was only a dream. Shelley says it really happened and that she's been trying to talk to Joe since then. She explains she's been struggling with her own marriage and identity, and it hurt when Joe stopped talking to her. While Shelley talks, Joe starts feeling uneasy. She excuses herself to call Spencer, but instead walks into the nursery and sees the crib is empty. That's when she realizes she has never actually seen Shelley's baby. Joe checks the bathroom and finds the bathtub stained with dry blood. Horrified, she starts to think Shelley killed her baby. She rushes out and sees Shelley holding Ruby. Joe demands her daughter back, but Shelley refuses. Suddenly, Ruby bites Shelley's hand, making her drop the baby. Joe grabs Ruby and runs. When she gets home, Spencer is there wearing his butcher's apron, covered in blood. Joe becomes suspicious and asks why he's still wearing it. Spencer says he just came from work. Soon, Doris arrives to take Ruby so Joe can rest. That night, Spencer tells Joe he's called professionals to help her. Joe panics, thinking they want to take Ruby away. She asks to hold her one last time, then quickly pulls out a knife, accusing Spencer of trying to hurt her. She runs outside with Ruby, locks herself in the car, and drives off while Spencer bangs on the door. As she drives, Joe tries to calm Ruby, but then sees a dark figure standing in the road. She swerves to avoid it and crashes into the woods. The next thing she knows, she's in a hospital bed with Spencer by her side. Weeks later, she's in a recovery center. Her doctor asks if she's still seeing monsters or feeling paranoid. Joe says no, but worries it might come back when she's home. The doctor explains she has postpartum depression, which can sometimes turn into psychosis, and tells her to take recovery one step at a time. Doris comes to pick her up. Joe thanks her for helping and admits she never tried to connect with her because she lost her own mother when she was young. Back home, Spencer tells Joe to hold Ruby, but she hesitates. That night, he reminds her that during the crash, police found her wrapped around Ruby to protect her. Around midnight, Ruby's crying wakes Joe. She takes her downstairs, placing her in the stroller while she warms a bottle. At first, she speaks softly, but soon she gets frustrated and begs Ruby to stop crying. She throws the bottle on the floor, then notices the stroller is empty. Looking out the window, Joe sees someone running into the woods with Ruby. She chases them and stops in shock when she realizes the person is herself. The other Joe holds Ruby, but finally says she isn't afraid anymore. She hands Ruby over, steps back, and disappears as the sun rises.
Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.